Hello, today I'll be doing a versus video. Been a while since I've done one of these, but today the albums that I'll be comparing are Planet Zero by Shinedown and Explosions by 3 Days Grace. So yeah, both big releases that came out this year, and let's go ahead and start off with Planet Zero. So yeah, when this album first came out, I was really into it. I might like it more than Attention, but that's maybe a big maybe for me. But I definitely like it more than Threat to Survival, though. For me, that album is their weakest. Not a terrible album. It's decent / alright, but for me, again, their weakest. But yeah, again, was really into it when it first dropped. And some of my favorites on here: No Sleep Tonight, which is one of the heavier songs on here. Planet Zero, the title track. Dead Don't Die. Ever since the album came out, that's always been one of my favorites on here. I really dig that song a lot, especially the riff work. Saints of Violence and Innuendo, another highlight for me off the album. It was really cool to hear that song live when I saw them earlier this year. Daylight's another pretty good song on here. When it comes to the ballads on here, I think that's one of the better ones, maybe my favorite of the ballads on this album. Dysfunctional You is another song that I dig off the album also. But yeah, also another thing you notice with this album is that you can tell they kind of experimented a little bit with certain sounds, such as what you can hear in some of the interludes and stuff. Sure Is Fun is kind of a different sounding song for them. But yeah, overall, pretty interesting listen. And while it did not make my top 5 of the year, still I think it's overall a fairly solid album. And honestly, I think everyone, when it comes to the performances themselves from the band members, I think they all sounded pretty good, especially Brent. I think he sounds really good throughout the album. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to Explosions by 3 Days Grace. So yeah, when this album first came out, I liked it, but honestly didn't really love it. For me, it's a contender for maybe being their weakest album. And again, if you enjoy this album, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, one of your favorite albums of the year or anything like that, definitely nothing wrong with that. More power to you. But for me, this album's just decent / alright to me. But again, it does have its highlights though. Again, not a bad album. So-Called Life, probably my favorite of the singles. I definitely dig the heavy riffs in the songs, such as in the verses. But yeah, overall, definitely one of the highlights on here. I do like I Am the Weapon. That's another stronger song on the album. A Scar Is Born is maybe a contender for maybe being my favorite song on the album. Chain of Abuse, if I remember correctly, it's a song that I haven't gone back to in a while, but at the time when the album first dropped, that was one of my favorites. Champion, while I do think the chorus is maybe a tad corny, I actually overall do not mind that song. But yeah, it does have a few weak songs on here. Someone to Talk to, featuring Apocalyptica, has always been one of my least favorites on here. Not a bad song, but a song that's never really stood out to me within the track list. Souvenirs is another song that never really stood out to me either. And honestly, the title track, overall, probably maybe one of their weaker album closers. Not a bad song. Overall, it's not bad. It's decent, but another song that doesn't really stand out to me in the album. Redemption is an okay song, but yeah. Matt Walst, I like his voice. And when Human first came out, I was one of the defenders of that album. But yeah, again, gotta be honest, I think this is a contender for maybe being their weakest. But even with saying all that, I don't think it's a bad album. Overall, again, decent / alright. But yeah, my problem with this album is that a good chunk of it just kind of feels like more of the same or more of what you expect from the band. And there's nothing wrong with doing typical 3 Days Grace or doing what's expected of you or anything like that. But at the same time, I think it's good to mix things up a bit more, not be afraid of taking risks and all that. But for me, this album, there's a good amount of tracks on here that kind of just feels like they're just playing it safe a little bit. But again, the album does have its highlights though. And again, I do still like Matt Walst as a vocalist. So yeah, you can probably already guess what album that I'm going for, or which album I think wins, and that is, of course, Planet Zero by Shinedown. So yeah, the reason I'm going with this album over Explosions is mainly because I feel like this album takes more risks, and with those risks, I think for the most part they succeed with these risks, and I think the highs on this album are more impressive than the highs on Explosions. But yeah, and overall, it's a more interesting listen, I'd say, because again, it was really cool to hear Shinedown experiment a little bit in this album, or moments throughout the album. But yeah, again, gonna have to go with Planet Zero by Shinedown. So let me know your thoughts on my opinions here. Let me know which album you like more or prefer, or is there an album that you like but dislike the other one, or you haven't heard one of the two, and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like. Subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.